Hello, duckies and dice fiends. Welcome. We are a few minutes late because we were fighting some technical things, and then a few seconds more late because my stream deck just said no, we're not going to work today. So we are building this plane as we fly it, keeping an eye on the bit rate. We might have to switch this over to Discord. But please let us know how audio sounds, how levels are. You know the drill. If stuff's out of place, let us know. Hi! I'm Kay. You probably know me. But this is David. David, who is you and what is we doing here?
Hi, I'm David. Welcome to the chaotic presence, wholesome. That reminds me of a joke that I have to tell Kay. That will be off stream. But welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Presents, the Tuesday Table Talk Show, presented by Chaotic Wholesome, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all the drama that we encounter, and boy, do I have some today, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
That was so impressive, David.
I did okay.
You did real good. Hey, Faison. Hey, Rex. Welcome on in. Rex, thank you for confirmation on all of that. So today, now look.
Okay, look. So drama. Today. I learned about some drama.
Hey, Vivian.
Because David watched a season and a half, 2 seasons of BoJack Horseman while he was sharpening knives, and David didn't get it. David still doesn't get it. And
we did swap places. I can fix that. Continue, David.
Part of that is just the way I have experienced both my own and other people's neurodivergence and mental illness, which, by the way, 2 separate things, over the course of my life. But what I did not know, because I had not finished the show, and I have not finished the show, is that Diane not only stooped. Oh my God, Herb, what are you doing?
Thank you so much for the raid, right? The timing couldn't have been. David, do we maybe want to get back on topic now?
Do I?
Hello, everyone. Welcome on in. Thank you so much again for the raid. Thank you for the follow, DC.
Herb, for one.
Hey,
thank
Steven,
you.
thank you
very
for the
much.
resub. Look at this. So many friends tonight.
So, you showed up at just the right time, because I was talking about drama that I encountered, and Kay and I have been talking about it on and off all day, wherein I barraged Kay with a bunch of memes, as one does. Hey, Cypher.
Hey, Cypher, welcome.
And one of them was about characters from BoJack Horseman. And I watched a season and a half of BoJack Horseman. I didn't get it. Like, I got it, but I didn't get it for various reasons. That does not mean BoJack Horseman is bad. BoJack Horseman is brilliantly written and portrayed, which is why it doesn't click with me, is because they do too good a job of representing the different things. But Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter did the thing unprotected, and then she got knocked up. Now, I'm not saying don't have sex with dirtbags. Like, our entire civilization is based upon having sex with dirtbags. But condominiums are a thing, people. Like use protection. Use
Space Valkyries.
protection. If you're going to have sex with the most annoying person you know, don't let it knock you up, please. Be more careful about who you reproduce with than you are about who you have sex with. And I understand that, like, going into this about like a fictional character having sex with a fictional dog with an arrow ace person who does not like dogs is like a lot. All I'm saying is, what's the dude's name with the beanie on BoJack
Todd.
Horseman? Yeah, all I'm saying is Todd was right. Todd was like, I'm gonna stay focused on my goals.
Herb
Not
would,
gonna have sex with any of these people.
Herb would like to
100%
know
correct.
how he's supposed to protect himself from sex by dropping a condo on someone.
In the same way that it is difficult to have sex with a billionaire that has been imploded by a submarine. There's not enough there to have sex with.
Okay. Welcome, Just a Jedi. We are getting back on topic right here. We, today, are going to talk about a topic that is perhaps just a little bit near and dear to my heart because I am one of those very, very backstory-prone players. And I want to talk to some of my fellow GMs out there who are often scared of these long character backstories. Now, let me be clear. There are definitely some character backstories that can have red flags and problems and can be an issue. But let me tell you how easy it is to torture your players and make sure they engage with your plot hooks simply by reading those character backstories. Hey, JD, welcome on in. So, I'm going to quote one of the masters. We have a series of masters that we can reference, but one of my favorite moments was someone, I forget who, was discussing long character backstories with Brennan Lee Mulligan. And they were like, you know, Brennan, I don't know how you deal with people who have these really, really long backstories that it scares me and intimidates me. Brennan's like, these are great. I love these long character backstories because it tells me exactly what I do not have to write. He's like, I'm lazy. And, you bring me, I write the premise, I write the basic world, and then I give it to the players. And then the players will come back and tell me what characters they want to play. And I can go, no clerics? Cool, I'm not building out the Pantheon. I can just skip that. Have a major god or two? Done. He had a whole thing about... I can put the shady, interesting NPC in the corner to try and make everyone try and engage with the plot. And I know they're going to ignore them for a goblin or whatever NPC I make up on the moment because they're more interesting. But if your uncle that killed your whole family is sitting in the corner of that tavern, I know you're going to go right up and talk to that character. So let's talk about, David, incorporating character backstories or specific player requests for a character into a campaign in a way that doesn't break the campaign, but just adds more plot knives.
Here's the thing. And first, I want to speak to players because I understand that we have a very specific audience. We have people who are performers and GMs, people who have played home games but aren't necessarily exclusively playing home games. Ribbon, hopefully it electrocutes. But first, I want to encourage home players who are either just getting into the space or haven't played a whole lot or who haven't played in a long time. Who worry that they're not doing it right. As much as Kay and I will tell you how to do it right, there is no necessarily right way, but also don't be afraid to be a little too much. Like, these are places for extravagant characters. These are places where, for better or worse, you go to play your edgelords. There are all different types of fantasy associated with it, including power fantasy, including, like, you want to play a weird tabaxi, that only walks on their four legs, like they use their back legs for like hands. Like if you want to do that, great, go for it. Don't be afraid. Instead, let your GM tell you, okay, this is a bit much, but like play up to that point.
Yep.
Because if you're just going to play a fighter that got out of the military and is now a mercenary, and like, a pack of wild kobolds ate his wife and child, and now he has nothing left to live for, and then he just sits there like a lump on a log, and then you roll to hit, and they're like that, you're not going to have fun. Other people at the table are not going to have fun. Your GM is not going to have fun, and you're not going to get as much out of the experience as you can.
I mean, to be fair, you and everyone else might have fun if the entire point of that campaign, and everyone agrees, is we're going to go kill a bunch of stuff. We're all playing fighters. We want a meat grinder game. There's a time and place for everything. We just need to make sure everyone's on the same page. Right.
And even in like a meat grinder, but all I'm saying is like your character can have a personality. Your character can have a background that is more complicated than the big bad killed everyone I cared about and now there's nothing left in my life. Like, you could have texture and variance and complication. Like, you could be in love with the big bad. Like, I've played Diablo 4. I know what that's like. But I've run into people just in conversation and people I've played with where they're like a little afraid to really like open up and like let it go. To open it up and let it go. Try on a funny voice. Like, don't be afraid to play, because ultimately it is a playground.
And as a GM, it is so much easier for me to build an interesting story around your character if your character is unique or weird or has a specific element about them that is interesting. I've mentioned Soul several times on here. I play Soul in the Emergency Power Podcast Starfinder game, and they are an edge monarch. I came in with a character where I'm like, this could be a problem, right? And I went to my GM and said, look, I want to play this character. This is what I have in mind. I understand that that these kinds of characters can be a problem. Here are the guardrails I have. Like, if you come with your GM saying, hey, I want to do this thing that could, like, marinara. Meatball Marinara.
Oh yeah, Meatball Marinara.
Was
Mr.
like
Marinara.
one of our friends' characters in a home campaign.
Oh no, Mike Marinara. Mike Marinara. Meatball.
Mike Marinara had a hook hand and was embarrassed about the hook hand. And so he's like, GM, can I please have prestidigitation so I can prestidigitate my hand to not look like a hook? And the GM's like, that could get out of control really quick with your class. He's like, I swear I will only use it for this, and stuck to it. So I had a similar thing, and I told you about this, David, and I can't talk about it yet because this thing is not announced, and I can't wait for you all. We're playing a game, sci-fi setting, outer space with non-human races, not a standard, not a Starfinder, right? A different plaything. Oh, thank you for the applause for Rubber Ducky. And I was like, they're like, we've got some non-humanoid species, and I'm like, hey, GM, I've had this idea kicking around forever, and it's weird and it's terrible. But what would you think of this? And the GM is like, that is terrible. I love it. Let's do it. And to the point where I'm like, hey, this is weird. Could I do this thing? And I told David, I'm asking if I could do this thing. And David's like, that's terrible. That's the word. Yeah, go do it. And the GM was so into it. Now, I've also had another game where I'm like, hey, I want to do this thing with this character. And they're like, can my character's features look like this? And they're like, I am fine with that if they're more subtle. Can you tone it down? So GMs will be generally happy to tell you what you can and can't get away with. Can confirm, the more I went all in on my Godplane character, the more enthusiastic nodding I got back. Yes, if you I already have to build a whole world when I'm running a game. Well, okay, I have to build a world. David has to build the monsters. I make David build all the monsters. Why? Because I'm lazy.
Because Kay is kind enough to give me something to do.
If you come in and say, this is my character, by the way, they love X and hate Y, oh, that gives me a whole lot to work with. And if I throw a thing at you and you give me a reaction, that means I've either gotten to you or to the character, and either way, I'm doing my job, so I'm going to do more. So don't be afraid to ask. Again, the worst thing you're going to get is, can you tone it down? Or can we find something similar but a little bit different to fit into the world? I have to build a whole world. This 100%. This. Give me something to work with, Rex says. Yeah. And again, no TTRPG survives its first encounter with the players. And as Brennan Lee Mulligan says, I built this super broody, cool NPC to sit in the corner and give you a quest, and I know that there's a 50% chance my players are going to say, I don't care. I want to go talk to the kobold.
And one of the best things that I have happen in TTRPGs, especially games that I GM. So first off, I've had, for people who are like, are you afraid it's too much? I have had the same thing. I'm playing a game in one of Kay's home games, and my character is not someone I would like to meet in real life. And so in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, one of the items in it is a bag of teeth. And completely independently, I was like, what if my character was just really into teeth? I wonder if there's and so I'm talking to Kay, I'm talking to the GM. I'm like, listen, can I just have a bag of teeth? And they're like, oh, you mean the item on page 183? And I'm like, really? They put this in there? And like more than once, I've been like, I don't want my character to be an asshole. I don't want like the teeth thing to be too. And apparently, I go around trying to like blow things up. Like now that's my, not just try to blow things up, but like will be face down in a book encouraging someone to commit acts of arson.
This mofo tried to convince my not boyfriend to make him give him my character's teeth.
Just one, for now.
For now. But yes.
Yeah. And like now his mission is like, I'm going to do enough nice things for this person whereby they agree to give me one of this other person's teeth.
It is such a complex. You know how home games can be, but
it's got layers.
That is us speaking to the players. Don't be afraid. And if you are, you have so many though. Exactly. Kessler understands that. James R. Gurney says, I have so many teeth though. And here's the problem. This character's teeth used to be, flat and normal, and they suddenly had little fangies. And Kessler's like, oh, give.
Wait, this is new.
So do be self-aware enough that you're like, hey, the Legend of the Tooth Fairy has to start someplace, Irv. You are correct. By the way, I hope your stream went really, really well. It's Trek Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Herb was they were playing Resurgence.
Yep.
But one of my favorite things that happens as a GM is when someone's like, I have an idea for blank. Is this okay? And then it sends me down this rabbit hole. That means that I have to build out a new mechanic, a whole new storyline with multiple NPC. For one of the home games I'm running, a buddy of mine was like, so yeah, I'm a wizard and like I've pissed off like the archfays and everything. So can I have dynamite? And I'm like, what you need dynamite for? He's like, well, dynamite has many applications. And I'm like, you know what? Say no more. Fast forward to me at 3:00 in the morning on Wikipedia, reading about the chemical composition of dynamite. learning about nitroglycerin, learning about stabilizers, rewatching the episode of the original Star Trek where Kirk made gunpowder to fight the Gorn, like, and then going to Kay, and I'm like, okay, we have this NPC. Can this NPC have an apprentice that's in this other place? And then
that will definitely
like,
get you on a list.
I mean, I've been a semi and then professional writer for, at this point, decades now. The government knows who I am, where I am, and what I am up to, and what I order on Amazon. Like, that's just like, I have an interest in picking locks. I can't order lock picks for myself because I know if I do, Steve, the FBI agent who's like currently watching my computer and, you know, consequently also watching the stream, so thanks for your support, Steve,
We heard you, Steve.
is going to be like, right, is going to be like, Dave, I'm gonna need you to not. I'm gonna need you. You can't. Same thing with like thermite. Thermite is technically legal for people to own. I will never order any, or like the two components that go into thermite. It's like it's legal to order both. Never getting delivered to my house.
No.
Never.
But
like Kay and I have built a new NPC for the thing that we're working on. There's a new storyline being built, and like it has ripple effects into all these other things that we're working on, and we're excited about it because somebody was like, I want dynamite. Like,
and again, if you come in with, again, have the self-awareness to say, I want to do something that's maybe a lot. I want to do something that's maybe not cool, or that could potentially be abused. And I recognize, because that is what is scary when someone comes in with, look, I am now infamous for writing a 16-page backstory. Now, in my defense, that character came in at level 5, which in Starfinder, a lot of history, a wanderer. So I left in, I basically wrote out a whole lot of NPC plot hooks for the GM to pull from, because if at any point the GM, I wanted my character to be a Swiss Army knife of connections, basically. So I'm like, here's some pre-made connections, make what else you need. I deliberately left very large holes and very long things I didn't know, and as well as like TLDR summary sections was part of that 16 pages, and the physical edited description. One of the problems that scares a lot of people about longer backstories is often the idea that you've already told the story. What is your character going to do now? And again, sometimes there could be challenges with people or like, this is a level 1 campaign. Well, I want this character to have already had all this history and it doesn't make sense for them to be a level 1. And it's like, yeah, can we maybe put some of that history into the game that we're about to play? There can be some conflicts there. But if you come in going, hey, I've got a lot here. It's for you to use. I recognize there might be an issue. You know, hey, I recognize that this thing that I want to do is not rules as written. However, I would like to use it in this particular way for flavor and history. Oh, we're probably going to work with that. Right? Especially if you come in and say, I have a character who has been in D&D 5e, in Starfinder, in Urban Shadows, and is about to be in another game. And part of the idea was this character lived so long in 5e that they are now in the modern day in Urban Shadows. They have lived that long, and in that time became a demigod. But doesn't want to be a demigod, right? Is in debt because they got rid of their demigodhood, because they no longer, that was too much work. So you come into a GM and say, right, you come into a GM and say, I want to play a character who was a demigod, and GMs are going to be like, I said, I want this to be a fact because in Urban Shadows, they're fae. Faes can't lie. So I want this character to just randomly be like, oh yeah, I used to be god, it was terrible, and then trounce off, and people are like, he's lying, right? Did they take a string? Because you can't lie about that. So if you come in with those kind of, this is how I want to use it, GMs are usually more open to it, then this responsibility is on you to not turn around and try and abuse that. But be aware. Don't be afraid to push. Don't be afraid to ask for the weird or the interesting or the unusual, because GMs usually love that, especially if it's something that could be super thematic or relationship hooks, story hooks. GMs will take that and run with it. Again, one of the best things I can tell you is if you are a person, because I know some of us, not everyone's like this. For me, I need to write about a character. I need to write out stories. I need to go through different scenarios to understand that character. I can come in cold and develop them as we go, but I prefer that other development. So the trick to do that is write out your story, but only write what your character knows. And tell your GM what's important, right? Hey, I really want them to have a good relationship with their mom, but any of these other relationships could have been deceitful, right? Put those important boundaries for yourself. But with that said, as players, don't be afraid. So GMs, what do you do? David, what do you do when Kay hands you a 16-page backstory and you know for a fact that Kay writes this much, but has this much in their head?
So there's what I do, and then there's what I would advise other people to do. Because what I'll do is I will sit down and read the entire 16-page thing, then write fan fiction about it, post it on AO3, and then send the link to Kay and be like, listen, this is who they're in love with now. And
then Kay says, headcanon accepted. And because I am the character, headcanon is canon.
Right. And I'm reminded of like someone on Twitter accused another Twitter account of like writing fan fiction about a character, and they're like, I wrote that, right? It's like when the lady who wrote Deadpool,
Gail Simone.
Yeah, when Gail Simone was like getting roasted on the internet, and Gail Simone was like, listen, little Twitter person, I wrote the character you love. Anyway, I will like, especially when it's like women, I will always be here for that. But yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just go way too deep. What I advise other GMs to do is, one, understand that GMing is more work than being a player. Sometimes significantly more. And with that understanding, don't do things that aren't fun. Like, it's different when you're doing it for a stream, for a podcast, for a recording, like when you're doing a performance. But if you're playing a home game, you're doing it for fun. So do what's fun. And if you hit the point where it's like, all this extra stuff that I'm doing then don't. Like, don't put yourself in a position where you are resentful, where you make your characters resentful. Rex says Gail Simone is a treasure when she slow burns some who say she doesn't know the Punisher. Right. Yeah. Like just devastate somebody.
Rex, remind me to tell you the story of when I was introduced to her. We're not doing it here, but we'll do it elsewhere.
Okay. Sorry.
What did you just crack yourself up with?
A buddy of mine messaged me, and I made the mistake of so people see that I'm on stream, and will be like, Kato. "Oh, David, here you go, David." But a buddy of mine is like, my Roomba kept running into things, then closed the door on itself, and had to be let out. I was like, "Is your Roomba a cat?" Like, no, because a cat would figure out how to get out. But recognize that it's more work, and that whatever work you've put into it, you're going to have to do more, because no campaign survives first contact with players. So first, keep your scope in mind, because a lot of people are resistant to adapting things that players throw at them, because they've already put in so much work that they feel like near at their limit. So don't and I'm a victim of this too, where I worked and worked and worked and did all these things for a campaign that I was running, and then like my players didn't interact with like this one thing, or they went off and did something else, and I'm like, but I worked so hard for all the, and it's like, if I'm having that reaction, that means that I have done too much in places that don't matter, and I have to reduce my efforts in certain areas so that I'm not exhausted and burnt out and bitter and resentful. So like that is my first bit of advice.
And learn to speak like a spider.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I had to come up with a hoarse voice. That is the crime. That is the crime. Like when St. Peter is at the pearly gates and be like, all right, okay, we're about to let you in, except there's this one thing. And you're gonna be like, what could it possibly be? What have I done? And it's like the horse thing where he had to that's a sin.
Look, if that's the worst thing I've done in my very queer, very strange life.
I'm gonna say, yeah, that's your biggest crime. Rex makes a good point. This is a story we tell together is a vital phrase I try to start my games with.
Yes.
So first off, keep in mind the scope of what you have to do and what work the game requires of you before you get in too deep. Because it's much better to have like 6 sessions and then to be like, hey, this is too much, or life is happening or whatever, and you enjoy the time that you have, versus being a bitter, hateful, angry GM and striking your players with the fist of an angry god for
yes.
Like
Go
5
back
sessions.
to that tavern. Go
Right.
back to it.
Yeah, and then having all your players rage quit because they can't stand you anymore. Like, don't ruin friendships over this.
Yes. So I have had the fortune of having players send me. No one's quite given me the same length of backstory. One of my GMs is playing in a campaign that I'm currently running. And they're the GM I set the 16-page backstory to. And they specifically in their character backstory was like, I was trying to make this as long as yours, but I couldn't. And I'm like, okay, touche, you get to. And then I've had players where I'm like, okay, you've given me the basics and those are great, but like, I need a little bit more to sink my hooks into to build this story. Like what? Yes, all these things happened to them or were done to them or they were involved in this. How did they feel about it? What have they done? Like, what is them? And again, it absolutely depends on the player. Sometimes you have to dig for that. And sometimes, again, if you watched Godplane, when Candace brought in Bo, it took me a minute to get Bo. And then I figured out who Bo was and what part of Bo was Candace. So if you watch that scene of Bo's trial where this Minotaur is wrapped in chains and is trying to break out, I wrote that so that Candace the player could do that because I knew once I got my head around the character, that's what Candace the player was trying to confront in Bo the character. Because we all tell a little bit, I don't know what you're telling about yourself with those teeth, David, but we all tell a little bit of ourselves through our TTRPG characters. So it's easier when you know someone, right? But start figuring out what is important. What is this person looking for? And this also ties into a thing that we talked about a while ago about like finishing a story. And sometimes a character doesn't want to continue the adventure because their story's been told or they found their answer. So again, if you figure out what is being reached for, where David has to figure out what the teeth signify. Yes. So obviously it can be easier said than done, but start going through and being like, what are the recurring themes? Because, and again, David and I are fortunate enough that we get to work with some truly talented storytellers and people, regardless of if they've had writing experience professionally, regardless of if they have had improv experience, like they just know intrinsically and they have had the time and the practice to tell a story. And just like when the music swells, they are ready to step into that spotlight. And when people understand how stories are told and understand how to tell stories, you can easily start picking out the pieces out of their backstory. And if you get a 16-page backstory that you're not quite sure, it's, oh, they did this, and then they did this, and then they did this, and then they found this, and they did this, and now they're here. Then it's time to go, okay, so they did all that. Why? What for? How do they feel now that this is done? Once you start getting that information, well, then it's much easier to pull those hooks into the world and maybe make your world just a little bit strange to match those story hooks.
Something. Listen, the teeth got me going, okay?
Yeah.
Rex says, I use Jerry Holkin's 3 questions for players in the game I run. What is your secret purpose for joining the party? Who has wronged you? Or who have you wronged? And what would you kill to know? Listen, the list of things that I want to know bad enough to commit crimes is too long. Like, you think Kay's 16-page backstory is bad? I got 16 pages for you. But that's a really good that's a really good approach. Like, talk to your players and ask them, what does your character want? And what is your character afraid of?
I like to ask, what do they want and what do they need?
Right.
Because those are different. See, I like those questions, except again, now let's be fair. Kay plays a lot of oddball characters. And there's an oddball character that has not been played on stream yet. Yet being the key word. I have things I can't wait to announce, y'all. It's killing me. What is your purpose to join the party? I don't know, I'm just here. It seemed like fun. Sure, there's a story to be told. Who have you wronged? Out of character, I can answer that. In character, cannot. Kinley does not. David has to deal with Kinley. David deals with Kinley on a home game. Kinley, as far as Kinley is concerned, everyone loves Kinley. Kinley is great and charming, and everyone adores them. What would you kill to know? Oh, I'd rather like to know why the paladin's mad at me.
And then Kessler would hand Kinley a knife and then point at someone, be like, prove it.
So yes, those are great questions for most characters. Not every character can answer those. Then again, maybe you shouldn't play characters as weird or difficult as Kay does.
And it's also, so, like, earlier I was like, don't be afraid to make your character not outlandish or extravagant, but like more textured, more interesting, more complex. But it's also important to recognize that it's okay to say, to answer, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know is a valid answer for most questions. And in fact, if you can't remember the last time you said, I don't know, then you need to, like, reflect on your life. Either your life is too boring or you're out here in these streets saying things that you don't actually know about.
And a GM asking those questions can often be they're trying to figure out, ooh, this might tie into a plot. Can I put in a plot? Hey, this hometown they're from. They have anything you've got planned there? And you can either spend 2 hours spinning up a story, or you can say, not really. Why? And they say, okay, so what if? And if you agree to that, congratulations, you have a plot hook in you.
Right.
That answer is going to come back to haunt you in some way, shape, or form.
And like, I have a character in one of my home games that is like, I'm from the Astral Sea. And I'm like, dope, got it, click. the end. And I immediately took stuff from the Astral Sea, put it into my campaign, and then put like breadcrumbs. It's like, okay, this thing leads to this thing leads to this thing. So I'm going to present this thing to you at level 1 so that at level 12 you can see this thing over here. And that it was just off of this is where I am. And I think that leads to like my next piece of advice for people who are for GMs who are trying to incorporate and flesh out and intertwine stuff that players and characters give to them. And that is that everyone has a past, everyone has a future. And just because you have a past doesn't mean that you have skeletons in the closet. Like, it doesn't mean you're guilty of anything, but that doesn't mean that you're not, that you as a GM can't put skeletons there. Because just like Kinley's like, I've never done anything wrong. And I've taken things about Kinley and stuck it in another game so that Kinley's just a monster. Is Kinley doing anything wrong? No. Is Kinley intentionally like hurting anything or anyone? No. But one, misinterpretation is a good storytelling tool. Don't do the rom-com thing where it's like a 30-second conversation over a cell phone destroys the whole plot of the film. Don't do that. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions is great.
And it ties into you said, write only what your character knows, because we're from America. David and I, we're from America. America's the best. We're raised with all these things about America. And then most of us, I'm not going to say all of us, but most of us, as we get older, we start learning things about American history that weren't put in our American history classes, and how the rest of the world thinks of us. And that's not saying that we as people are bad, like we as individuals are bad, but maybe we have to rethink some of the things that we thought we knew.
Yeah, when you stop saying the Pledge of Allegiance every day. No. But like a great example of this is Star Trek. And I know that like, oh, hey Sauce, how you doing? And so like I know I get into Star Trek all the time, but Star Trek, like Star Wars, is a very helpful tool to talk about storytelling, because it's something that many, if not all, people have some perspective on. Like if I'm gonna talk about storytelling, like archetypes or tools, or then you're gonna hear about Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, or Star Trek, because everybody got some reference to one of these. Anyway, the Federation is presented as this like, we've defeated all the bad things about humanity. Now we're going out to be imperialists in the nicest way possible. And watching The Next Generation and watching Voyager, you don't necessarily like see that, but then you see Deep Space Nine and you're like, oh, these good intentions don't always have good outcomes. And then the Federation has to deal with the bad outcomes. And then the Federation has to deal with the fact that we're still human. We still get bitter about wars that were fought and skirmishes that were fought and people who were lost and wrongs that were done, like the consequences of that. So, Kinley Kinley has power, and they're like, even with all the self-awareness that Kinley doesn't necessarily have, will cause a chain reaction of things that then someone else has to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so all you got to do is put someone downstream of that and be like, why is this tree blooming in the middle of winter and just ruining all these things? Like the price of persimmons has dropped precipitously because there's so many precipitants now. Like, you know, you've knocked over my my cabbage stall.
My cabbages.
How dare you? My cabbages. And it's like, all you gotta do for a big bad is just grab the guy who runs the cabbage stall and give him like a teensy bit of power. The end. You're off to the races.
And most of us, again, we talk about we're the GMs, we have to build worlds. We have to build the world. We have to build the whole freaking world. And that's great. Most of us GMs like world building. We're all pulling from the same basic source material, the same basic inspirations, right? Like David said, Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. Yes, we also find these weird animes, all these various other things that we reference and draw inspiration from. But we're also limited to the things that we have seen and drawn inspiration from and imagined from, because, again, no one creates in a vacuum. The idea that you came up with can be traced back to something that inspired you, maybe in a way that you don't even remember. But it has inspired you, right? So, when you've built up a world and you're like, okay, this world feels unique-ish, but I wish I could find the thing that's going to make it pop, or I hope the players connect with it. If a player comes in and says, again, I'm referencing a thing we did on stream, my character worships a spider god who isn't evil, but who weaves the strands of fate. Oh, now that's a fun and interesting take that I probably wouldn't have come up with myself. But now that puts a different spin on any spider imagery I've put in this game that this character might encounter. Oh, I had never thought of... I can't reference this because it's not out yet. There's some power packs coming out soon, y'all, that are going to be really fun on the Emergency Power Podcast. Or even, I freaking showed up to David's campaign and said, I want to play a paladin of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Help. What do? And David said, tell you what. I can make it work if you promise to go Oath of the Ancients. I don't want to railroad you. And I'm like, no, that's fine. And he's like, look, I know it might sound railroady. And I'm like, no, that's fine. I don't know what the Flying Spaghetti Monster is. So you tell me what my oath is. I'm fine with that. And then David had to learn how to speak spiders and horses.
Yeah. But what's also cool is that very thing, like Kay coming to me and saying, Flying Spaghetti Monster is real, is fake, you tell me, made me change dramatically how I approached characters and leveling up. Because now, so like, you know, everybody knows that there are levels where like important things happen and levels where you get like a point and like a proficiency thing. And for like the big tentpole levels, like level 3, like level I want to say 6.
I think
is
it's
it
6.
5 or 6?
It's either 5 or 6. Well, it also depends on class, because like
It depends on the class.
Clerics are like level 1, whereas rogues are level 3.
Well, no, clerics. It's level 3 where you get the oath.
Not in some. There are some classes that you get your oath
clerics,
at level 1.
not paladin.
Paladin's level 3.
Um.
Again, it's very confusing. If you don't remember a rule, it's fine.
Yeah. But you know, I had in that game warlock and a paladin, both hit level 3 at the same time. Both underwent really significant moments that triggered their level up, or that were triggered by their level up. And now, when anyone in my party levels up, I think about like, okay, what is the real world thing that changes from level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3? What clicks in their head? What do they do during that downtime? What reflection? What new skill do they develop? Um, what settles into place? What signifies? What action signifies this transition from a weaker level to a stronger level? How is this person strengthened and emboldened? And that adds a lot of storytelling opportunities, because you could go, oh, well, you're a Death Knight and now you're level 3. Or you can go, you went to sleep and everything was fine, and then you had a powerful vision, and when you woke up, your blankets and the bed and the pillow and part of your room have been torched and damaged, not by fire but by necrotic energy, and now you got to figure out what the hell is going on. Like, that personal journey is extremely different, other than, all right, pick your feet.
Yeah.
And that's really important for adding to the texture of the experience for your players.
And again, like Brennan Lee Mulligan said, I can set up a cool NPC to sit and be broody in the corner of the pub and deliver you a thing. But it's so much more potent when you walk in and not bothering to hide and not even knowing or caring that you're there is the man who betrayed your whole family and cost the lives of your parents and all of your siblings, and you barely survived. Oh, you had best believe a player's going to go deal with that. So use those backstories, use those cool elements, because, and again, here, I think where a lot of GMs, especially young early GMs, in long campaigns trip themselves up. The mistake that is so easy to make is they're like, aha, okay, this character here and this character here have a thing in common. The character that did, the person that did this to them can be the same person, right? So episode 1 or 2, I'm going to reveal, oh my God, both our moms are named Martha, right? Like, and it doesn't work. It does work, but because it's so early on in the game, you're like, well, that's a little bit tropey. Whereas if you've been dropping breadcrumbs and dropping this here and there, why did I say that name? If you've been dropping breadcrumbs and then 46 sessions in, you both step into, you are going to kill, you're going to stop the person, finally confront the person who killed teammate A's parents, and you walk in and it's the same person who killed your parents. Then you are a genius GM who connected these dots and strung you along, and I maybe had an idea, or maybe I called it, but then I talked myself out of it. That's when it's fun. But it's less fun if it's episode 1.
Right. Or, you can turn it on its head, where it's like, this warlord killed my parents, and then this kindly old man like took me in and started an orphanage, and yada yada yada. And then you're going after the warlord, and you walk in, and the kindly old man who ran the orphanage is also the warlord, and then you're like, huh, well, I'm gonna have to talk to my therapist about this.
Yes. Well, the only reason I killed your parents was so that I would have a good excuse to start. Where do you think all these orphans come from?
I built this orphan crushing machine. The problem is I didn't have any orphans. So I had to go make orphans to go into the orphan crushing machine.
Rex said, I had a new player have a beef with the same hags that one of the existing players had issues with. The players still hate each other, but they're working together. Look, Some of y'all have seen Godplane. And David and I were just talking about the uniting power of Vassal and how the quest-giving NPC who's like, I hate y'all. I don't want to work with y'all. I don't like you. You disgust me. Everyone's like, yeah, well, fuck you. We're going to do this because we're better than you think we are. It's amazing. How could... And that's like... Hostile NPCs, especially hostile primary quest giver NPCs, can really be tricksy. And I'm not going to say the name of it, and I know I've mentioned it here before. I love farming games. Y'all, I love farming games. I am a farm kid. I grew up on a farm. I don't want to live on a farm ever again, but every so often I need to play a farming game so I can touch my roots, and I like farm games. Sorry, not sorry. I play them all of them. There was one, and I will not say the name of it because it is abandonware, and that breaks my heart, but it was a murder mystery farm game where you inherited a farm from someone who was dead. You show up, or you didn't even inherit it, you bought it. You spent all your money. That's why you have no money, is because you bought it. You show up, and everyone in town is like, what do you mean you have the deed? You can't have that deed. No, you can't have the deed. No, okay, we'll pay you your money back. Get out of town. Leave right now. And you're like, at first you're like, why is everyone, and you're like, well, screw you. I'm building this farm. This is my farm. Like, everyone wants you out. Everyone is actively hostile. Everyone is actively hiding things. And I'm like, this is going to be the best farm ever. I'm going to make all of the money and uncover your secrets, and you're going to jail. Hey, Leslie. So yeah. There's a lot of fun to be had by twisting those, but also you have to do it the right amount, because if they're pure jerk... We did, without saying too much, the end of... I thought this was episode 2 or 3, but I went back and looked at my notes, and no, it was the end of episode 1. End of episode 1 of the Godplane. Players ran in to Bice, a particular NPC, which cast Vassal in a very different light. And Vassal was not any less of a jerk. But there was context, and that made it just a little bit easier. Okay, I am... catching up on chat. Spite is a very... Look, David will confirm, and I will not tell these stories on the internets, but David will confirm that probably 90% of my career success has been out of spite. Hey, Ty, welcome on in. Yes, spite. Spite is so incredibly powerful.
I just realized that I'm really just like... outing my age by hearing Sprite and immediately going, Grit Hill drink Sprite. And there are people who like G Fuel. I cannot bash on the taste and or flavor of G Fuel because I've never consumed it. The reason I've never consumed it is because a certain type of content creator pushes it, and I will not support any company that will go with utilizes or tries to utilize a certain type of content creator to roll out. Listen, is it Royal Crown? And it's not Royal Crown Cola. What the RC stands for something. The RC stands for... I'm gonna look it up, but that's not important. Anyway, I'm not gonna talk about G Fuel anymore. Not gonna do it. Not until they sponsor me. Not until they give me like money. But
yes, their fans are definitely thirsty. We won't say for what.
Right. They need water and grass. They gotta touch grass. No. But the I can word, but the next piece of advice that I would give GMs is, and it seems really obvious, but it's an important thing to keep in mind, and that is engage your players as much as possible. It's very easy to like come up with and build out your story and your world and be like, okay, this is now a not a playground, but like a museum of story ideas, and you
Yes.
can come in and look at them, but don't touch the
We're
the
walking.
paintings.
We're walking. We're not
Right.
touching. We're walking.
Right. And it's like, no, it is a playground. It is a pile of Legos. And so like the one thing that I encountered, and I think was it Daddy Gabe? It was someone. One of the bigger names in TTRPGs is like, you walk in and you see the most gorgeous bartender you've ever seen in your life. What do they look like? Because it's very easy for me to go, okay, so you walk in, and the lady behind the bar looks like Jill Scott. Like, you're instantly in love. And people are going to have thank you for the follow.
Thank you so much. Welcome.
People are going to have different things that they're into. And like, there are people who are into Jill Scott and people who are wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. But no, I can describe Jessica Rabbit to somebody. And if somebody's like, I don't like redheads that do the thing with bunnies, like, that's weird to me. Yeah, be Dave.
Yeah.
Whereas a player is going to give me a description of what they find most engaging.
And you're gonna, it's a great way for diversity. If you're a person who looks like me, that's a great way to make sure that you've got some extra diversity in PCs, because I've known more than one player of color who are like, I am the only person of color in the entire world that I play in this game. Because it's very easy to forget that. But number two, give players that chance to be just a little bit weird, just a little bit freaky, right? Like the moment in the D&D movie when we meet the Barbarian's ex.
Yep, 110%.
Or
110%.
even the moment, and this is one of my favorite, the actor who played Hodor in Game of Thrones. I started asking a question as a journalist, because I did gaming journalism for a while, because of this story, where this guy kept getting interviewed for being Hodor before, that happened. Yes, it was a great cameo. Before that happened, like, he was going to all these interviews and they were asking about Game of Thrones and asking about this and asking about that and asking about that. And he finally is like, they were ending an interview and he's like, before you end the interview, can I just say I'm gay? No one has ever asked me. And I just want people to know that you could be big like me and have star tattoos and be gay. And it's like, cool, let the character, like, you don't have to, especially if you're like, I don't know, if you as a GM know this character swings certain ways, how do you not out them? You say, you see the most gorgeous person behind the bar, what do they look like? And maybe they describe a woman. Maybe they describe a man. Maybe they describe someone with a beard and boobs. And that's awesome.
Maybe they describe a minotaur.
Maybe they describe a kobold with nipples.
Maybe they describe the monster under the bed.
And
but Rex is right. I have my players describe their NPC contacts, names, what they look like. Oh boy, I do not let them choose the accent. Yeah, ooh-wee.
I do my best to try to match player accents for family members, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah, I don't.
Piper does an incredible French accent. You know who learned they cannot do Kermit or a French accent? Your friend here. But a stereotypical witch, now that I can do all day.
Also, thank you to everybody who came by on Saturday.
Yes.
Everyone who donated. It was an important charity event. I actually hounded a bunch of my, in real life friends. I'm like, listen, I know you don't care about TTRPGs, but if you don't get in here, I'm going to come for you.
Yes, we ran, for those who came in with the raid and don't know, we ran a Flabbergasted Roaring Twenties charity TTRPG benefiting the Trans Lifeline this weekend. My internet decided it was not going to behave. David swooped in and saved the day, even though he was not part of the show. The show would not have existed without David. And we had a goal of $300 and smashed it with $400. So thank you all for donating. Thank you for hanging out despite the tech issues. Thank you for retweeting and lurking and chatting. You were wonderful, and it was so much fun. So, and one of the things I had to do was an impression of a stereotypical witch. So that's why that segue happened.
And again, it's important to remember, especially since I too am a broke bitch. Not all of us have like extra money to throw at things, but there are tons of things that people can and have and continue to do that don't cost money, like tweet and retweet and come and lurk and all those other things, like even like just talking about it with your friends helps.
Even just saying I was there and it was really fun and I liked your impression of blank, because sometimes after a game, I don't know if y'all know this, after a game you can get into your own head and have a spiral even if the game went perfectly, but you could just be like, oh no, I did terrible. And just hearing, no, I had fun can mean a whole lot. So yes, be sweet, retweet. That is, I love that. Because it is still pride. And while I do support be gay, do crimes, that is great. I am not quite gay, so my personal slogan is be queer, strike fear. I've said that like 6 times in front of you, David.
Yes, and every time I'm just like, yes. But yeah, and that's another thing. When it comes to like getting players to engage, incorporating backstories, and all of what our current topic is, it's also important to tell people what you like and what you didn't like especially the part that you like. Mm-hmm. Because there's this, going back to the dawn of time, there's been this disconnect between like what people are told is beauty and what people actually find attractive. And you know, every generation there's a new thing where it's like, oh, this little like minuscule detail is hideous and you should be super self-conscious about it. And then like all the people who are attracted to those types of people are like, what are you talking about? But with streamed or with performed TTRPGs, actual plays, podcasts, pre-recorded stuff, live stuff, all of that involves people who are performers and who are putting themselves out there and who are taking a risk. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, as much as you can say, oh, well, you know, you put yourself out there, so, you know, whatever happens. There's also this like desire to entertain and to present something that you want other people to like. Mm-hmm. Not all of us can be Cormac McCarthy, where, you know, our head is so enormous that we can't fit inside of a building that isn't at least barn-sized. And so saying to those people, hey, you did a great job. Hey, I like this particular thing, and doing so earnestly is really important. Some of the best TTRPG performers that I've had the pleasure of working with, I've gone, hey, this one little thing that you did, I really, really dug that. And they went, oh my God, I did not know if like someone would notice that, or if that was going to be good, or if it was terrible or not, or if it was a good idea. And so like just that that sort of confirmation really helped. And words are free. Kind words are free. Cruel words are free. And there are enough cruel words out there. I should know. I roast people professionally. Like, I can sit down and stack up mean things to say about people. But it's important that you communicate these things, because we're not talking about Keanu Reeves. We're not talking about somebody who goes, well, I guess they liked the movie. It made $350 million at the box office. We're talking about people who are doing intimate performances, and intimacy means vulnerability, and vulnerability means reassurance and communication.
And in case you don't know, which I think most people in this chat do, but like certain platforms, such as the one we're currently broadcasting on, have been making decisions that are having powerful impacts on the incomes and the lives of people who are trying to build a profession off of this.
Mm-hmm.
And are maybe facing the fact that they will never be able to build a profession doing this thing that they love, and are dealing. We are all the main characters of our own lives, and we do not know what the other main characters are dealing with. So you never know what someone is dealing with, or what's not performance anxiety is not the word I'm looking for. But the self-doubt and the imposter syndromes. And I've known some of the most talented people who are like, I don't get invited to be on things, or I feel like I only get invited to these certain things because of the color of my skin and not because I'm actually a good performer, or I feel like I should be in this thing. I tick all the boxes. I don't get invited. Why not? What's wrong with me? And they are genuinely talented people that I see on a ton of things, and in their minds they're still not being invited to the table. And it doesn't have to be an empty compliment. It can even just be, hey. I had a GM say, hey, it's been really cool to see that this character finally reached the point where they said the nice thing to this person, or they put their hand on this person's shoulder. Like, I knew that was a big thing for the character. You never know if you're actually telegraphing all that well, because sometimes what happens in the moment and in your head as you're the character is not the same as what is being out in the world, which is why I always recommend you watch your performances if you're able to tolerate it. Watching yourself is absolutely freaking terrible. Trust me, I know, because I watch every performance I do, and it is torture. But hearing someone else just say, having someone say, I saw that thing you did, it was cool. Remember that. That can mean a whole lot to a performer. And again, you never know what self-doubt or what struggles they're facing.
And for GMs, it's so, for one, people who are playing at home also do it for your GMs, because sometimes it's a little tough to like sit in front of a group of 4 or 5 people and like do all these things after you've planned all these things, and then they pack up and go home, whether digitally or physically, and then you're like, okay, what now? And then you cry and you eat ice cream and you go to sleep. Not necessarily in that order. You sleep and then you cry and then you eat ice cream for breakfast.
You eat ice cream while crying and fall asleep in the tub. And yes, JD says, right. On the flip side, if someone says a kind thing, don't dismiss it. That can be hard. I'm a person, David knows, I have a notoriously hard time taking a compliment. So just know that sometimes if someone is like, thank you, that might be all variable to give.
I am a big old bully, so Kay has no choice but to take the compliments that
David weaponizes kindness.
And will continue to do so. Ice cream tastes better with tear salt. True.
Definitely.
And as a GM, especially if you're trying to get, because like there are always going to be people at your table who are more boisterous, and I don't want to say louder, but like more boisterous and more engaged than others for whatever reasons. And especially to like your quiet players, especially to like So each character has their own story arc within the overall story, and there are going to be times, and there are going to be sessions where you're focused more on one character than the others. Um, and it's important, or I find it very important, to say to your players, especially your quiet players or your players where like this like little arc isn't focused on them. Hey, um, I really like your contributions. I really like this thing you did, um, and so on, so that one, they know they're thought of. Two, they are included, and most importantly, for the confirmation that their approach to the game is okay,
Right.
is like not wrong.
And I'm going to add to that and circle back to something Rex said, which safety tools and backstories are also key as well. Yes, I have a family. No, they will never be in danger. B. Dave has a whole talk about, unless you tell me otherwise, parents are awesome and parents are proud of your character. If you tell me your parents are scumbags, right? But he said that he found time and time again, they'd finish, they'd be leaving, and the dad would be like, hey, son, I'm really proud of you, and like pat your shoulder. And he's like, people came up to me after sessions and said like that meant a lot. Now, if you know me, I'm like, here's my whole backstory. Use it against me, please. As I've said before, I'm from the Hurt Me Daddy school of TTRPGs. As my dear friend and the GM of my homebrew, of our homeworld home game where Kinley and Kessler the Tooth Collector run rampant, asked me at one point, oh, is this what a pain kink manifests like in an asexual? And I'm like, how dare you perceive me? How? But there are definitely...
Shots fired.
Right? There are certainly characters in my backstory where I have written like, hey, they are no longer in touch. It was a miscommunication. Like, I'll say, like, this is what happened. It was a miscommunication. This is how my character took it. And this is how it's been ever since. I sincerely hope that those characters also still like my character and would like to reconcile. I don't know, right? I am willing to risk that for this character because that is part of the unknown. There are certain parts of certain characters' backstories where I'm like, actually, you know, this character, they are close to, and I would like for that character. Like, if you have, especially because David and I run a lot of horror games, we spend a lot of time talking around safety. And we have a whole section of what will not be in this horror game. What will you not be dealing with? And so if you're like, look, I need my family to be alive. I do not want, like, this, my character's partner, please don't make them have been betraying me this whole time, right? If you have limits around that, please express it, and a good GM will work around it. It's not going to say that you might not have been working together for the bad guys the whole time without knowing it, but tell us where your limits are.
Yeah, like, I need to know ahead of time that the big cat that your Beastmaster Hunter has is named after your childhood cat. I need to know that ahead of time, before, because
Yeah, we were pulling together a horror game, and one of the players was like, "Can I have I want to have a companion animal?" And then thought about it for like 10 seconds and was like, "Actually, no. I think I need my companion. I think I need pets to not be in the horror game." Kejime says, "I'm also from the Hurt Me Daddy school. I love when my character backstory suddenly comes up randomly." I'm not going to say what, but the season finale of Emergency Power Podcast, we were encountering a character, and I had a huge fear that it was going to be related to one of two characters from my character's backstory. And it had never occurred to the character, but the player lost sleep because I'm like, if I were a GM, this is how I'd hurt me. I've named this goblin after my childhood friend who passed away. Oh, hello, crew. Yeah, like, you gotta be careful. You gotta be gentle with certain things. And if you have those certain things, like, really, please. Like, there are certain, I have a hard time with dementia in games now because I've dealt with it IRL. And for right people, right settings, no problem. But it's definitely not a thing I expect to come up. But when it comes to a zero session, I'm like, hey, so maybe don't do this. I hide behind my goblin friend who was named after my childhood friend in combat, and now I am invincible. You know, here we were in a zero session, we were talking about things we didn't want to deal with, and it's like harm to innocence, harm to the helpless people. And it's like, well, but where does that fall? Because like in some settings, like in a Strixhaven, where everyone's in school, right? So maybe they're 14, 15, 18 years old. But they're also in school to be adventurers and wizards, right? So they know. So locking Harry Potter, and don't support that series, but this is my example, is like locking Harry Potter underneath the stairs just made that world cruel. It didn't add anything other than making that world cruel. Whereas if you go to adventuring school to be an adventurer, to learn how to fight and to kill people, you have signed up to be in that combat, and you are coming in at least a little bit equipped regardless of what age you are, generally speaking, in most D&D settings. So that's where, if you have a player coming in and saying, I want to play a 12-year-old adventurer, which can be done well, not everyone can do it well, but can be done well. It was done excellent in Shikar. It was one of my favorite, Shikar, with that bronze girl. There we go, looking at the captions. Was done excellently. But also that meant that 12-year-old child was put in mortal danger because 12-year-old child was capable of throwing the punch and agreed to throw the punch. So
yeah, like there are many people who are very into Harry Potter, and I'm not going to get into that. The first 150 pages of the first book are just relentless, needless child abuse. Full stop. That's all I'm going to say. But like, a good example is Pokemon. Like, Ash Ketchum gets electrocuted by Pikachu, who's like, I double dare you to try to put me back in that ball. But also, like, Ash Ketchum wasn't birthed by his mother. He was found in a crashed spaceship in Kansas by Martha, and I forget Dad's name.
By Mr.
And was found by the Kent family and was raised to hide all of his powers, which is why you see him casually carrying around 800-pound Pokemon without batting an eye. And guess what? If I will throw Mewtwo at Ash Ketchum, because Ash Ketchum winds up to punch Mewtwo, and Mewtwo's like, listen, I gotta put up this here psychic barrier because I'm trying to live through this. Okay? Like Baby Clark can get a little smoke. Ash Ketchum, teensy bit of smoke. Now, random orphans, maybe don't put them directly into the orphan crushing machine.
Yeah. Don't do the thing
unless
that
you're the big bad.
David was talking about at the start. Also,
right.
Like, Ash Ketchum can take the smoke because Ash Ketchum is the ideal employee that everyone in the games industry, and let's face it, tech in most industries want, a 10-year-old with 25 years of experience.
Yeah, right. He may be 10, but he is a seasoned adventurer.
So, We are probably going to be wrapping up and winding down because we are reaching that time. Chat, you have been incredible. Herb, thank you for the raid. Stephen Joyce, thank you for the resub. Welcome, Kanjamace Gaming. Thank you, DC Lixer, for the follow. You all are wonderful. So happy you're here. If you have final thoughts or final questions about incorporating character backstories, now is the time to throw them out. David, do you have any closing thoughts, any last notes for GMs or people hoping to get their weird character accepted into a game?
To recap, one, understand the scope of what GMing is, and either pick it up or put it down, and then with that understanding, embrace what your characters bring to you. That doesn't mean break your game, but like embrace it, see where it goes, and don't treat your world and your plot and your source material like a museum. Treat it like a playground, and then also always look for more ways to engage your players.
There is little more exciting as a player than going along through a story and suddenly realizing this place is for me. This is the place I described as my character's childhood home. This is the NPC I talked about. This whole section is built because of the weird magical item, custom homebrew magical item that I requested, right? When you have that moment of this is for me, that makes a player feel incredible. It is sometimes easier to do in shorter games than in longer games. But when you can do that for your players, they will remember it so much. And don't be afraid to wander off your comfortable and beaten path to allow your players to influence your world, because it is going to put more color and texture and excitement into the world. Because again, David and I build games together because I have certain experiences and he has certain experiences. And the sum total is way more than what the two of us would be. And I often reach out to other people and say, help me out. What do you think? What would you, if you were in this, do you have a mechanic? Because no one person can come up with a whole complete world. So don't be afraid to recruit other people whom you love and respect. And whom can you possibly love and respect more than the people you are running this game for?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to ask for and embrace the weird, because again, most of the characters that I am best known for, be it Roxy, the half-orc paladin of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, or Kai, the very creepy, no charisma android, they're known because they're weird. So don't be afraid of that.
Dungeon Mr. Ty says the bravest GMs might consider polling the players from time to time. Ask specific questions about their experience.
And I have some GMs who want to do roses and thorns after every single session, and I'm like, this is so difficult for me because I tend to leave a session really happy because I just like playing with other people. And I kind of want to be surprised. So I have a really hard time with that. I'm like, just please keep doing what you're doing. And I know that's not actually the feedback that you're asking for, but put me at a table with great people. And I know we might break the plot. I know we might go where you don't expect us to. But if you are willing, and we did this with Godplane. We were like, we got places to be, and people would be like, we're going to build a blanket fort and talk as a party. And it's like, David, we're shutting up. We're letting them do it. No. This is going to be so much better. And then the stuff they talked about in that blanket fort, you best believe it made it into subsequent episodes.
Wasn't it like a Critical Role? I think it was Critical Role where there was this whole plot and that someone died, and then the whole plot became about this person that died.
Mm-hmm. I won't say who because it was main character. Well, at one point, even Critical Role, they were supposed to go to the capital city, and they ended up going to the city with all the drow. And they were going through this tunnel, and Mercer's like, it's really difficult. It's difficult, it's dark, it's depressing. And they're like, cool, we're going to keep going. Cool, we're going to keep going. And then like months after they went to the whole city and they redid that whole thing, welcome on in, Dave. Thank you for the follow. As they were pushing through all of this, and Matt's like, you should probably turn back. And they're like, no, we're going to keep going. Like a month after that, he's like, so I had this one person ready to play a character. He was ready to come on. We had scripted out the character. He was prepared. He was going to give you missions. You were going to do all of this stuff together. And then you all went to the other city. You refused to go back to the capital. So after about a month, I had to be like, dude, I don't think it's going to happen. And he's like, yeah, cool. That's how it goes. And hey, with Dave, that puts us at 420 followers.
Hey.
Just throwing that out there. Thank you for
Write
being our
420th.
So I think that's going to wrap up our discussion. Like, again, absolutely no encounter is going to survive the players. So plan what you can. Be prepared.
There was much rejoicing.
There was much rejoicing.
And no talk show is going to survive an encounter with a co-host.
Especially not when he really wants to talk about the submarine.
Fair. Super fair.
So, I think with that, we're going to wrap up.
There was much rejoicing.
Xanderific is playing Oracle of Seasons. Look, the Oracle of Ages and Seasons games were criminally underrated. Oh, sad trombone. So we're going to go over and please say hi to my friend Xanderific. Thank you all for hanging out. It has been great. Once again, thank you, Sauce and Ribbonanza, for all the redeems. Thank you, Dave Maddox, Smagy Ace Games, and DC Lacera for the follow. Thank you, Herb, for the raid, and Steven for the resub. It is always great seeing you. Just redeem all those things as we go out. I am going to be playing Pokemon here tomorrow, not my usual Thursday, because, and it's so cool that I get to say this, my office is doing a pride party. So instead, oh no, I take that back. I'm going to be doing it. I did that wrong. I said that wrong.
Wow.
We're going to be an hour late. We are going to be on, I am going to be on Thursday, but it's going to be from 7 to 9, unlike the usual 6 to 8, because I get to throw a pride party at my office, which is really, really awesome. David is not going to be playing video games this week or the next. You will be here for the talk show next week, though, right, David?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
Never miss it.
And I've got a thing that I'm going to be able to announce #soon. So please check out the social, check out the Discord if you are not in it. Because I can't wait to tell you all the chaos I get to unleash on the world. And thank you all who came by for the charity game this Saturday. We raised $400.
And there was much rejoicing.
Much rejoicing. $400 for the Trans Lifeline. Thank you all so much. I'm going to stop talking. We're going to go see Xanderific. And
yep.
I will see you soon, y'all. Be good to yourselves. Be excellent to others. See you next time.